We are live for a new episode of the Electrek podcast. I am Fred Lambert, your host, and as usual, I'm joined by Seth Wintraub, coming us live from North Carolina. How are you doing, Seth?
I'm good.
Where are you at?
I am at Alpitronic's headquarters in Charlotte. We're going to have Michael Dudoff come in later, CEO of the Americas, to talk about the grand opening here that we attended yesterday and their new charger operations and strategy and all the other stuff.
Perfect. So this interview is going to be about in 40 minutes or so live. So the podcast is going to go as usual before that, and then we're going to transition into the interview with Seth and Mike. And at the very end, we're going to take you guys questions. So if you guys have a question about any of the topics we're going to discuss today, can be about Alpitronic too, but also we have a Tesla Semi update. We have GM going NACS and doing it a little bit different than the other automakers that have done it so far. What else do we have today? We have Tesla's delivery numbers that we are looking at ahead of the end of the quarter. We have Norway going crazy with more EVs than ICE. We have great new studies on battery degradation and a lot more. So let's jump right in, starting with the Tesla Semi update. So if you've been following my reporting on this, it's the program I'm most excited about at Tesla right now. I think it's going to be the most impactful for the mission, or at least the original mission. We got an update today from IAA Transportation in Germany. They have the commercial version of their big conference, mobility conference. And Tesla brought a Tesla Semi there that they modify a little bit to match EU regulation, and talked about launching the electric truck in Europe. Elon earlier this year said that it would make sense to produce the vehicle in Gigafactory Berlin. So no update really on that front, but more like broader update on the vehicle program ahead of the production. The whole production with the Tesla Semi has been a bit weird because officially it is in production since the past 2 years, but it's been in very limited production. They are building the volume factory now next to Gigafactory Nevada, and according to this update, the plan is to start volume production next year. And now they plan the 50,000 units per year that was mentioned, like 4 or 5 years ago by Elon, is now planned for 2026. So that an update thanks to Dan Priestley, the head of the program. But some of the other interesting mention on this is that first of all, they have traveled since the new production version, so the last 2 years, they have a truck that traveled 250,000 miles, 400,000 kilometers, which is pretty decent. It's not exactly a ton for a commercial Class 8 truck. Like commercial trucks, they do travel a lot, but it is very good data. Overall, they have 7.5. I think I have miles there, but it might be kilometers. I'm not so sure. It was because it was in Europe. They were switching between the two. Let's say 7.5 million kilometers, which is a lot. They re-mentioned that they were able to have one truck travel 1,700 kilometers in a day, 1,000 miles, though that was already confirmed by a third party through the test program with PepsiCo last year. We did report on that. Priestley mentioned a 95% uptimes with the trucks. Uptime is extremely important in commercial trucking since time is money. But probably the most interesting thing that Priestley mentioned in his presentation was the efficiency of the vehicles. So obviously, going battery electric, you're going to have this significant fuel saving versus diesel, which diesel is quite expensive. But the more you can make the BEV efficient, the bigger the difference will be, because you also use less electricity in the vehicle, because the vehicle is going to, it's a 80,000 pound truck when it full load. So there's a lot of energy, the electricity needed to carry the capacity. Now he updated it to 100 kilowatt hour to travel 100 kilometers, 62 miles. If you translate that in kilowatt hour per mile, that's 1.6 kilowatt hour per mile, which is better than what Tesla originally reported at the unveiling of the Tesla Semi, which was 1.7 kilowatt hour per mile. So just saving 0.1 kilowatt hour per mile is, on the life of a truck, which again is going to be hundreds of thousands of miles, it adds up to a decent amount of money that you're saving as the total cost of ownership of the truck. So this is great news. There was also another presentation with the Tesla Semi update with PepsiCo that was marketed as a case study with PepsiCo, but honestly, it wasn't too deep into details for something called a case study. But basically, PepsiCo kind of backed these numbers from Tesla. They are using almost 90 Tesla Semis now in their fleet, PepsiCo, in a variety of mix between short haul and long haul. And they're the one that did the 1,000 miles in a day with the Tesla Semi, and they are very satisfied with the pilot program so far. They plan to take deliveries of more Tesla Semi trucks. And one of the things that I find interesting in the PepsiCo case study is that they actually found that the Tesla Semi was helping with driver retention, which is a big problem in the trucking industry right now. Like the short staff, extremely short staff, truck drivers on in high demand. So their drivers were the manager of the PepsiCo electrification program said that the old situation with the drivers went way smoother than expected. You know how truck drivers are sometimes. A lot of them are like petrol heads. They really like their gasoline engine and all that, or the diesel engine in this case. So having them to go BEVs, I would have anticipated some, fighting back a little bit. And that's apparently there was the same attitude from PepsiCo's manager. But he said it went smoother than expected, and that the drivers actually love to drive those trucks. They want to be driving those trucks. So that's very good news.
Yeah, and you can see why. Like those guys sometimes spend a lot of time in those vehicles. There's no vibrations. Diesel, have that like ringing thing. Noise probably wears grates on you. I don't think people are sleeping in Tesla semis yet, but
Not yet, no.
They sometimes leave those things on while they're sleeping in them, so they're like it's just a mess. So electric would be much better in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and they have to have like seats that counter those vibrations, which works very well. I've been in those seats, but at the same time, it's not the only one. Like you're still holding the steering wheel, you're still having your feet on the ground at some point or whatever, and you feel that vibration for real. So it's just removing that vibration is a big deal. You mentioned the sleeper cab. There was a mention of a sleeper cab version at the Tesla Semi presentation, but that was already announced before. We haven't seen it yet. All right, Tesla stock was way up yesterday thanks to new delivery numbers coming from China. Tesla, we've been reporting a lot of the Chinese number over the last few months, and they've been doing very good. And it was no exception this month also, or at least for the first 2 weeks of the month. They reported 15,600 deliveries. Insurance registration, we should say, in China, because in China you have to be careful when you look at the numbers. You have the insurance registration that tells you basically the numbers of vehicle Tesla is delivering in China, but there's also the exportation from Gigafactory Shanghai to other markets. Though at the end of a quarter, like the last month of the quarter, like September, that generally goes down, the exportation, because they do focus on the local market to shorten the transit time. So 15,600 last week, 16,200 the week prior to that, adding up to almost 32,000 so far in September. And I wouldn't be surprised if that actually picks up a little bit in the next 2 weeks. So it should be a strong month for Tesla in China in September. And they had a great August with 86,000 vehicle. That's include exportation, I should say, and 74,000 in July. So it looks like Tesla is on pace for like 230,000 or so, probably maybe more, a little bit than that, vehicles in China in Q3. In China, in and from China, again, exportation and the ones sold domestically in China. So Tesla is doing well in its biggest market. It's doing well in its biggest exportation hub, Gigafactory Shanghai. The question is it going to be enough to compensate for what is going elsewhere, especially in Europe? In Europe, registration data still doesn't look good this year. Tesla is way down. We're looking at the 2023 numbers versus this year. Tesla is short about 70,000 units And the last time we reported on this last month, it was 60,000 units. So the gap has widened by about 10,000 units. So this is hard to recover, 70,000 units. But China is doing well. The difference maker really is going to be the U.S., which the U.S. is a little bit more opaque in terms of data, quarter to quarter. Like we get the data a little bit later, so it's again not as opaque. But there's some good signs in terms of deliveries in the U.S. in terms of the incentive. So we reported this week that Tesla has pulled out the heavy weaponry when it comes to financing. So Tesla's approach lately, instead of discounts, well, a few weeks ago we reported on the new referral program in the U.S. and Canada, which is basically $1,000 discounts on all new car except the Cybertruck. So there's been this discount added at the end of the quarter that's going to help for sure. But the price is one thing, the financing is another. A lot of people are not buying because of financing costs, and Tesla has been just subsidizing those a lot. So we reported on Tesla introducing lower rates that they are taking the difference. This time they went a little bit further than that. You have even a 0% down, zero down payment on Model Y and Model 3 until the end of the month, which might be the best deal Tesla has ever done, because now you're taking advantage of all the price cuts from the last 2 years, because the price kept going down over the last 2 years. You're taking advantage of Tesla's subsidized APR, which are on the website. I was only able to get it as low as 2.49%, but I literally just got a text message from Tesla like an hour ago that said that they could give me a 1.99, which I've seen other people get too. And so if you, in the credit rating part, if you put the promotion part, now you can get the $0 down. So zero is due at delivery, and 2.49 or 1.99. It might be depending on your region. So I might have been in the US there when I put it. In US and Canada have similar deals going on right now. So you can stack that up on top of the referral program. If you're an owner with FSD, you can also do the FSD transfer until the end of the quarter, but could come back next quarter, like it has been several times by now. So I'm not saying that as an incentive to buy now, but this is like probably the best deal you can get a Tesla on at this point.
Tempted to trade in?
I for fun, I put in my car as a trade-in estimate, see how much it went down in the last few months. They're now giving me $25,000 Canadian for it.
Oh.
It was 30 just like 3 months ago or something like that.
Yeah.
I would probably need to sell it myself to take advantage of that, because otherwise I'd be putting like $5,000 or $6,000, like leaving $5,000 or $6,000 on the table, which is pretty wild.
Right.
All right. We have a lot fewer people in right now because we did the show a lot earlier. But if we do have some of our regulars online and some new people that are joining, you can put the comments right now if you have any questions or about the topics we're discussing right now, or any other topics in the EV world that you want your opinion in. We're going to take your question in just a few minutes after we're done with the news and then the interview with Mike Duclair from Alpitronics. All right, this just came out this morning. Pretty wild story. A Russian warlord claims that Tesla Cybertruck used in combat in Ukraine was remotely disabled by Elon Musk himself. So this is a story that's been going on for a month or so. We reported on it last month, where Kardarov, I think is his name, he's the de facto dictator of the Chechen Republic, which is part of Russia now, and he's a self-described put-in full soldier. Like he's a little warlord for Putin, basically. And last month, he took delivery of a Cybertruck, which is interesting alone by the fact that you're not supposed to get a Cybertruck in Russia. Tesla doesn't sell in Russia, and also there's a bunch of sanctions and embargoes. There's embargoes on sending products to Russia directly, but there's sanctions directly on Kardarov, I think you pronounce his name. And so he still got one, and he put a machine gun on it because that's what Russian warlords do on Cybertrucks. And in the original, so he posted this image and a video of him in Chechnya driving the Cybertruck and on Telegram. And Telegram, he sort of insinuated, or like I tried a bunch of different translation, and he could have claimed that Elon gifted him this Cybertruck, which sounds extremely unlikely. Elon has done a lot of dumb things lately, but that would top it all up by a mile. So Elon denied it, obviously, after the fact. But now, a few weeks later, Kardyrov's claims that the Cybertruck is in Ukraine, in combat situation in Ukraine. In new Telegram post, he said, translating, now recently Musk remotely disabled the Cybertruck. That's not a nice thing for Elon Musk to do. He gives expensive gift from the bottom of his heart and then remotely switches them off. That's not manly. That's not manly. Manly? What? Why is that not manly? We had to tow the iron horse. How could you do that, Elon? ? Okay, so now he more directly claims that Elon gifted him this, which again I'm sure Elon denies, and I extremely doubt that. And he claims that he disabled it. So that's interesting because just the potential to do that, the ability to do that is interesting. I don't think it's impossible. I think it's probably very possible, and especially if you have like court orders from the Cybertruck was not supposed to get to Russia, so probably can get a court order and send it to Tesla, and Tesla can comply and shut it off, or do something. I don't know. But also, I think it's probably more likely that the truck just broke down after a long travel from the US to Chechnya to Ukraine. I think that's more likely, but you never know. Right after his Telegram post, then RT, the Russian media, which basically a propaganda arm for the Russian government. It was the organization that was recently involved in DOG persecution that U.S. right-wing media organization was taking money from RT people for propaganda. So it's the same publication here. So take whatever they say with a grain of salt, obviously. But they did share a video of two Cybertrucks now outfitted with machine guns on top of them, apparently entering Ukraine. It's not exactly sure, but that's what they claim. So they claim that the remote disable of the Cybertruck was countered. They were able to remove that, and now they have somehow two Cybertrucks that work as assault vehicles.
They not only disabled it, they doubled the amount of Cybertruck somehow.
But you know what? We reported a few months before the last report that Kardyrov got one, that someone was trying. There was two Cybertrucks that were stopped at the Lithuanian border because they were believed to be going to Russia, and that was against the sanctions, so they were stopped there. So there was two of them. So it might make sense now that the two of them end up there. It's just so weird to see the Cybertruck in this situation. Like, and I know a lot of people are saying like oh, these are the people that love the Cybertruck. Like obviously you can love the Cyber, like a lot of Russian warlords and oligarchs and mobs love the Mercedes G-Wagon, for example. Like it doesn't make the G-Wagon. It doesn't mean you're a pro-Russian or a pro-Russian invasion of Ukraine if you drive a G-Wagon. But still, it is wild that people like decided that now you have literally Cybertruck in the Russian army attacking people in Ukraine. It's oh boy. I was asking Seth earlier, like, having Cybertruck in your armies with machine gun on them, does it make you a scarier army or a less scary army? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess it depends on what you think of the Cybertruck as a war machine.
Yeah. All right, this was an interesting study that came out this week from Geotab, which is a automotive telemetry company that is in a bunch of different EVs. So they get a lot of data from EVs, and they've been tracking battery degradation, battery health for a while now in electric vehicles. We reported 5 years ago on their last study, dating in 2019, that showed a 2.3% EV degradation per year Now, 5 years later, they have updated that study with a lot more data. Now they had over 10,000 electric vehicles in their study with very granular data about battery degradation, and they are adjusting that number from 2.3 to 1.8% per year, which is interesting. So what they say now is that based on their data, they see EV batteries lasting as much as 20 years. Before they degrade to a level that is, not useful. So if you look at the average age of a vehicle, not an electric vehicle, because we don't have that just yet, obviously, because you're relatively new still. But the average car normally gets what's the word when you sunset it? You put in recycle it. Yeah, and basically recycle it. 12 to 15 years, apparently, is the average cars that are getting. So if you last 20 years, your car would probably break down mechanically before the battery wouldn't work. So they said, according to our data, the simple answer is that the vast majority of batteries will outlast the usable life of the vehicle and will never need to be replaced. If an average EV battery degrades at 1.8% per year, it'll still have over 80% state of charge after 12 years, generally belong the useful life of a fleet vehicle, which is a very good point. Now, obviously, not all EVs are born equal. They are different. So, like here they have 11 different models that they don't name specifically, but they do have they do have a thing that they like so kind of chart that you can modify with some models. They don't have all their models in there that you can see the difference, and most of them are like older models too because they have more data on them, so they're not been updated to the newer models. So it's not that useful, but you get an idea of it. So you can see a big difference with some of the models and others here, but still everything over 5 years is still over 87% looks like, which is not bad. They also look at the impact of different things. Like here they compare 2015 Tesla Model S with 2015 Nissan Leaf over the same period of time. Here the goal is to compare active battery temperature management, which the Nissan Leaf doesn't have. It doesn't have active cooling. So that will have an effect on the battery life, and you can see that clearly because you have the model from the same year over almost 5 years period of time, and you can see very close to 10% difference. Yeah, very close to 10% difference, like 9% difference in battery capacity. So that's quite significant over the same period of time. They did a bunch of other things too, looking at the frequency of DC fast charging, and which we've seen like mixed results in the past. Like we've seen frequent DC fast charging negatively affecting the battery, sometimes not negatively affecting the battery, especially in Tesla vehicles. So it's been hard to follow. In their study, they do see an impact, but the impact was somewhat not that significant. And the frequent, like what they determined as a frequent DC fast charging was like 3 fast charge per month, which is not that frequent in my opinion. But I don't know, maybe I guess probably with their data, they saw that as the difference between someone that does it a lot and someone that does. How frequently do you fast charge, Seth?
I mean, almost never, unless I'm going on a trip, obviously.
Yeah.
So I think there's probably a wide variety there. Like there's some people who almost never do it like me, and then there's some people who live in a city and park on the side of the road and can't really charge at home or slow charge, and they use it more like a gas station. So
yeah,
you take those both together, take the average, and that's probably where you get the 3 per month.
One of the bigger impact was actually the climate, where it's hot, where it's a lot hotter. Like so, they look at the vehicle, like in Arizona, for example, they do get significantly more battery degradation, which again highlights the advantage of having good active cooling in your battery. So that would mitigate that. But even with that, obviously, so if you have active cooling on your battery, the active cooling is powered by the battery itself too. So that will mean you will use more battery also. So, there's no winning at the end, but you can mitigate the impact. Finally, Jotab also does mention something that has probably the biggest impact, but it's harder to really quantify it. especially on the long term, because it's the battery buffer. So automakers use a bunch of different battery buffer. We noted, for example, Audi for years had a big battery buffer. They've managed that down a little bit as of late, but having a big battery buffer means that that's the capacity of the battery pack that you're not using, you're never actually using. So having that extra capacity would mean that you can change it over time with software update and mitigate the degradation of the battery pack by giving more capacity to the battery over time. So that's something to take account too. And lastly, they also did note that while they have a lot of data on high mileage electric vehicles, because there's plenty of them out there, I own a vehicle that had 400,000 miles on it. They don't have that many EVs that are older, like a 10-year EV, like 12 years EV. Like those are very rare these days. So they will become more common in the next 5 or 6 years. But battery degradation is not only based on usage. That's what we mostly focused on right now. That's what the study mostly focused on. But also based on age. For example, they did note that actually using your EVs more often is good for the battery. But that's true of any car. You let any car sitting for a long period of time, it's not good mechanically also and all that. So it makes sense. So using it is good, but in terms of the longevity, we needed still more data over like years and years and years of using the battery. But this at least so far, like the data is pretty clear, because that's one of the we hear less and less, but I still hear it all the time. I mean, Trump right now is talking about that a lot when he trashes EVs, is the idea that like you're not actually helping the environment because batteries are costly environmentally to make because of their mineral needs. So increased mining basically, and you need to replace them after a while because they degrade and all that. All the data we see now is that the batteries will last a long time. And not only that, after they're not that useful anymore, they can be at least not useful in an electric vehicle. They can be used as stationary storage. We've seen that happening. But they can be also recycled to make new batteries. And we see a big industry building around that right now. So it reinforced this idea that, why you said and I have been doing this for 10 years, 10 plus years now, where we've been big fan of EVs, is that the combination of ethical sourcing of battery materials with producing BEVs, having them powered by clean electricity, and having a program to recycle those batteries at the end of life is, the total package solution to make transportation sustainable long term. And the data is still supporting that, in my opinion, at least. All right, going to China, the BYD Seagull EV was the top-selling car in China last month, so quickly rise to the top. It's not surprising to see why, because it's just dirt cheap, starting at the equivalent of under $10,000.
Crazy.
Yeah, they sold 41,000 of them last month. So they're taking over the GM the partnership they have with Wuling, I think is the name in China, that has the tiny little EVs. So this is like basically the same price as that, but it's a little bit bigger, a little bit more useful, a little bit more car-like. It still has those training wheel on it, but still, it's actually like a useful like city car with up to 252 miles of range, 400 kilometers of range for the $12,000 version. So, and it's actually looked like a car inside, doesn't look like a toy, and that. And I'm not saying it looks luxurious or anything like that, but for the price, you can't really.
I mean, you have to say like it looks like a Chevy Bolt with a that was maybe redesigned by Homer Simpson. Like when
it's not that bad even. Look at that. It's not that bad.
It's not that bad, but not great. I mean,
and it is smaller than the Bolt, to be clear.
Yeah.
It looks like similar shape, but it is smaller wheels. But it is a 4-door, which
4
is a
doors.
nice hatchback. So it's like an actual useful car.
I mean, for the price,
it's
crazy. It's crazy, and what it should be.
Yeah, and it's using the new blade batteries, the new LFP blade batteries that BYD is producing. So you have a 30 or 38.8 kilowatt-hour battery options in there.
So 190 miles is the base range. That's pretty good. I mean, CLTC is quite optimistic usually. So maybe it's more like 130, 140.
Yeah, between 130 and 150. I'm sure that 190 is achievable, but like it's basically hyper mining at that point. But you get 150, 130,000 mile car, like real miles, which with basically what was a Leaf battery pack just a few years ago,
Right.
in a format that's useful, and you get more range out of it for a third of the price that the Leaf was. And then you get the 38 kilowatt hour version, which I'm pretty confident you could get over 200 miles on it in the city driving, which is probably what these cars are mostly used for.
Yep.
All right, we got bad news from Volkswagen this week. They're gonna halt ID4 production due to the weird issue with the door handle thing that we reported on before. So there's a ongoing recall of nearly 100,000 of Volkswagen's ID4 produced in the US. So if I remember correctly, the issue is water leakage inside the door handle mechanism that can lead to a circuit board getting water damage, and that can lead to the door opening. It's a very strange issue that they need to fix, and it's apparently like a lot more complicated than we thought. That would be like kind of an easy fix, but they say that they want to halt production maybe all the way to early next year.
Oh, geez.
So it's no joke. They're going to be about 200 workers are going to be furloughed because of that. Though they're going to compensate them during that time, so it's not too bad. But yeah, it's going to be a big impact. So they're working with their dealers on the fix, but apparently they need a lot more time to work on the production fix. So interesting.
That seems like something that Volkswagen, a company that's been building cars for quite some time, should have probably discovered earlier on in the design process. I wonder why.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it has nothing to do with it being electric. It's just the design of the door, right?
Yeah. It's purely the mechanism of the door and the door handle. So I don't know how many like vehicle had actual problems with that. I think it was very limited, the number of people that but all have the potential issue, I think.
Yeah.
So that's why it's going to be a big fix. Yeah, it's possible that the recall itself is going to be several hours of work per vehicle, so that's going to put a big load of work on the Volkswagen dealerships.
Yeah.
All right, GM this week announced their NACS adapter and basically the integration of their EVs on the supercharger network through this adapter. However, unlike Rivian and Ford, so GM is the third automaker to get on board or to get access with it to the network. They are selling their NACS adapter for $225 to owners. So
Not a giveaway.
Ford and Rivian were giving them out at the request of the owners. GM has decided to opt against that, which is kind of a bummer because I think most people would want it. At least most people that are doing long distance travel, it makes sense. Like you want that over using your DC fast charging network.
I feel like they could have given. I mean, Bolt owners typically aren't doing long trips. So maybe not for the Bolt owners, but for Equinox, Hummer, Blazer, Lyriq, like those kind of vehicles, just give them the stupid adapter, come on. Doesn't seem like that big of a deal.
Yeah, $225. Like I'm sure the cost is much lower than that too. That's what they're saying it for. And then in the announcement also, they did mention that the NACS as a standard connector on the vehicle is going to come on 2026 model year for GM's the EVs. So that's a little bit later than some people expected because we knew 2026 model year normally means end of 2025. And prior to that, we were told that 2025 is when those vehicles were going to come. And we learned, like, for example, the Hyundai Ioniq 5, the 2025 model year, which is coming, in the next few weeks, 2 months, really, is going to have the NACS. So that the adoption was a little bit sooner. So that's going to be like a full year later for GM. At the same time, we know that Elon's firing of the entire Tesla charging team did set them back a little bit quite a lot on the program of opening the supercharger network to other EVs and NACS adoption and all that. So I'm sure that didn't help and probably pushed that timeline a little bit for GM. And now we need to realistically expect other automakers to also have the same. Though it might be surprising also others will do like the same as Hyundai did with the Ioniq 5. All right, this was big news that came out last weekend. So we reported a lot. Oh, oops. The links. That link brought me to another. Did I click something else or? No, the link doesn't work. Oh, I mean, we can talk about that a little bit just so that I'll jump into the Norway news. But this, I didn't know about this. So this is a Chinese all-electric pickup truck that is launching in Europe. So you're like in the US, Europe has implemented tariffs on Chinese EVs, but they are much lower than what we have in the US, which is 100%. In Europe, it's varying up to 25%, I think. And they do put some exception depending on some other things. So there's still the door is still open, at least for Chinese automakers that are willing to go to Europe. And this one is Maxus, which is a partnership with SIIC Motor, which is one of the big manufacturers in China. They're launching the Maxus all-wheel drive electric pickup truck, which has 267 miles of range according to the WLTC, which is not bad, 430 kilometers. Yeah, 2 electric motor, 120 kilowatts in the front, 200 kilowatts in the rear. 7,700 pounds of towing capacity, 1,400 pounds of payload. It has 102 kilowatt hour LFP batteries. So, interesting. LFP batteries in pickup truck might be one of the first. Though I think Ford wants to do that with the next Lightning, right, for the base battery. Yeah, so they're not the only one. Only 115 kilowatt fast charging, though that's
really slow.
Yeah, especially for big battery at that. Do we have a price on this? I would assume that the thing is the price. It has bidirectional charging, so that's cool. It's about as big as a Ranger, or a little bit bigger than a Ford Ranger at 5.37 meters long. The interior looks pretty good. A bit cheap, but pretty good. Starting at 50,000 euros. No, pounds. That's pounds, right? Yeah, that's pounds. $66,000 US equivalent before VAT, though. Interesting.
So how does this compare to American trucks? Not great, like especially on the battery pack and the charging. But Europeans probably have different ideas about pickup trucks, generally speaking, right?
You don't see a lot of them out there.
Right.
All right, let's look at the actual news I wanted to discuss before the link didn't work. Send me to another thing. But this is Norway. So we report a lot on Norway's incredible EV penetration rate in terms of new vehicles sold. Like they are at 95+% EVs now for new vehicle. However, for changing the existing fleet on the road, that takes a long time because, like we said earlier, like 12, 15 years normally for a car to have a lifespan. So it takes a while to change everything. And the boost in Norway is that they've been at over 80% for a while now, maybe like 4 or 5 years, but in the last 2% are hard, but still it takes a while to replace the whole fleet. But what was announced this weekend is that for the first time, electric vehicles have surpassed gasoline, fossil fuel powers vehicle in Norway roads. I think we had the actual number here. Yeah, here's the number. So at the end of last month, they were 751,450 electric cars in service in Norway. And so 755,000 petrol only cars, which is 4,000 more. But that was at the end of last month, so we don't have the official total number here. But we do know that there were about 10,000 more vehicles sold over the last month in Norway, And while literally like a few hundred petrol vehicles, it's literally that low right now, the market for fossil fuel powered vehicle in Norway. So we know that they already surpassed that just by adding these new vehicles. And probably during that month too, there were a few ICE vehicles that were sunset in Norway. So that number most likely went down over the last month, and this one went up by around 10,000 units. So for the first time in Norway, there are more vehicles driving on electricity than on fossil fuel, which I think is pretty awesome. All right, so we lost Seth right now, which I'm pretty sure he's coming back with
I'm back,
Mike.
but I don't have Mike yet, so maybe we'll go to the very brief comments first.
Okay.
And then we'll hit that, and then we'll see if Mike can show up.
Oh, lost it again, but I can discuss the comments. So Dan Harold says, Geotab sample at 2 years and 4 to 5 years, resulting in 2 points. 2 points defined online. Battery generation is not linear. No, that's true. It's not linear, but I mean, you can still get a lot of data from knowing the age of the battery and the mileage at that time. So it's still good data. I agree. It's not as good as if you have like all the data points, but still pretty good in my opinion. All right, we have Prickly Pear that says Volkswagen has had issue with door handle as far back as I can remember. It's actually a joke that Volkswagen doors don't work since early 90s. I wasn't aware of that lore myself. Jacob Riddle from LinkedIn says, hello, I was the guy who was asking about the megawatt wireless power transfer equipment for large commercial induction charging parking lots over 50/50. And I have a question. Sorry, it's on 2 different comments. Will special purpose GFCI protection work with EVS over 150 volt hard wire? Okay, so that might be a question actually for Mike, not for us. And then we have Rosebuds here that says, let's move to Norway. I don't know if they want us there, but I need to go check out Norway with that update. Like it's well, we did repost a video, Micah, on our YouTube channel right now. We have a vehicle from Micah, I think from last year, when he did a deep dive into Norway. We spent a week there looking at all the electric vehicles there, and not just the electric cars, but Micah does a lot of electric micro mobility, so there was a lot of that. You can check that out. It's really cool. But now there are even more BEVs than fossil fuel powered vehicles, so it's even cooler just a year later. I think we're ready now for Mike and Seth to discuss DC fast charging. Hi, Mike. Nice to meet you.
Hello. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, so we're at Alpitronic's U.S. headquarters, just opened up in Charlotte, North Carolina here. Amazing new stuff. We had a nice grand opening ceremony. We had Cybertrucks and Hummers and pretty much every kind of EV you could imagine. Even a semi was here charging. So that was great. Just have a few questions to ask Mike. Like the big question, or one of the big questions, is why Charlotte? Why now? Was it the IRA, local incentives, people, competitors? And then we can go on from there.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, Seth, thanks a lot for inviting me. I really appreciate it. And thanks again for coming yesterday to our event. For those that don't know me, Mike Duclef, I'm the CEO for Alpitronic Americas. And, a lot of people ask me the question, Seth, actually, why is Alpitronic coming to the US and why are you coming now? And the answer is very simple. It's because of our customers. We are the DCFC market leader in Europe with around 27,000 chargers installed, over 50,000 ports. And with that, we have a few customers. So namely customers such as, let's think about, vehicle OEMs, think about oil and gas, think about large network operators, think about retailers, where we're doing business with them. They're satisfied. They like our product and experience, the reliability, the uptime, the efficiency in Europe. And they said, hey, we really want you to come to the US now. So the main driver for us, of course, the US is the largest market outside of China, right? So there's obviously, a growth opportunity for the company. But the main driver was really at the request of our customers. Now, we chose Charlotte because, well, several reasons. You just need to pick a location somewhere to have an office. Our headquarters is in Italy and in Bolzano, which is near Venice. So that's a 6-hour time shift to the East Coast, 9 hours to the West Coast. So we wanted to be in a more favorable time zone. Charlotte has great direct flight connections all over the U.S. and to Europe. 15th largest city. It's growing very fast. There's a great dynamic and a great vibe here in the city.
For sure.
And also the Carolinas are starting. You've seen a lot of companies, recently in the media where companies are moving more and more into the Carolinas. So there's starting to be a kind of EV hub. They call it the EV battery belt, but I'm calling it more of a kind of EV hub or EV ecosystem, which is good, I think, for everybody because that's going to attract more and more talent here, and there's going to be a larger talent pool for the operations.
One thing that we're all kind of feeling right now is that there's a huge shortage of DC fast charging infrastructure. How does the U.S., and obviously you're a part of that, but how does the U.S. catch up to that demand?
Well, I think there's no probably silver bullet for that. I would just tell you what we're doing, on our side, and that was the experience that we had in Europe. So in Europe, we launched our first hypercharger in 2018. And since then, now we've had installed again over 27,000. So that's just a massive growth, right, in a very short time. And frankly, we weren't necessarily prepared for that. So there was a bit of growing pains going through the process. I think what we did now for the U.S., a bit of a lesson learned was, let's invest early so that we, get all of those lead times out of the way so that we can really be ready for growth. Turn on the capacity as soon as we need it. So that was what we did. We kind of invested early, both in our building, right? Our building here where we are today, as you've seen, Seth, is not fully occupied yet. We have space for up to 300 people, but we're not full yet. So there's extra space, room for growth. The same goes in for our manufacturing capacity. So we really invested for 3-4 years down the road. What we project is our growth then, even if we have to cover those costs and under absorption in the short term. Our lesson from Europe was, hey, better to be prepared in advance than to have to scramble later to figure out capacity. So I think capacity from our point of view and kind of investing early and being prepared for the growth is the way that we think will contribute to more DCFC in the U.S.
Yeah, speaking of the future of DCFC in the U.S., we're obviously moving to the NACS, Tesla adapter protocol. Yesterday I was just in a conference room and I saw a guy walking down with a Tesla NACS cable, and about 5 minutes later he was walking back with the CCS cable that he had removed.
Right.
Is it that easy just to replace a cable? And is that like what is like the rollout? Like, will you have one of your 400 kilowatt machines with one CCS and one NACS for a little while, or what's going on there?
Yeah, maybe let me back up and then I'll answer your specific question. And of course, we know now in the U.S. we have the J3400/NACS, and OEMs have been committed to, I think it's every OEM needs one vehicle with a NACS connector next year, and then it's 50% the year after, and then it's 100% the year after. So it's going to be a bit of the Shadamo story again, right? But in with CCS. But we know that we're going to have this installed base of CCS adapters that we need to serve while we roll out the NACS. You've seen a lot, and I'm sure you guys have spoken about this before, about the adapter topic, right? So adapters are something that are very scary for us. Basic things like consumers not understanding amps and volts, non-certified adapters available on online marketplaces for, super cheap, which may or may not be certified, who knows? Also just the fact that you can have, dirt and other things inside of the adapter, which can be potentially hazardous. So those adapters we don't like, I guess, is the first point. Then how will it go? Okay, I guess no one really knows. And because of that, we've really designed the product in a way that, our customers can have a no regret investment, which means if you put a hypercharger down, you can start with 2 CCS cables. In 6 months, if you want to change, one of the CCS cables to a NAC, we can do that in the field. And you've seen it, right? It's super quick, right?
Easy.
You essentially, remove the terminations of the existing cable, pull it out, put the new one in, terminate it, and just update the charger to tell it in the configuration that now it's a NACS versus a CCS, and that's essentially it. So we're offering customers this kind of no regret investment. Some customers are choosing to start only with CCS. Some are starting to choose with 1 CCS, 1 NACS. Some are starting to choose with 2 NACS. So we really leave that decision up to our customers.
Great. And so, moving back to scaling, that's going to be something that's going to be a big deal in the next 6 months to 5 years really.
Mhm.
We've seen others in the marketplace, ABB and others that have worked with Electrify America and EVgo, haven't really had a lot of success in scaling, and they kind of, they came in. Electrify America, for instance, had a huge mandate to install tons of chargers, and they couldn't even, with one vendor or two vendors or three vendors, even get enough chargers. So how are you, if the opportunity exists, and frankly, by the guest list yesterday, it seemed like there's going to be some opportunity for you guys. How are you guys going to scale? Like, how are you going to get to a huge scale?
Yeah. Couple of things here. We are new to the U.S. market, but we're not new to the EV industry. So we have, again, experience in Europe going back to 2018. And again, we had that experience of this explosive growth. So, one thing we did was, we took our existing production as it is today, we brought it to the U.S., but we did also improve it. Okay, so we put a bit of automation on the assembly lines. By the way, you're welcome to come see the factory if you'd like to. It's very impressive.
Sure.
Yeah. So we've put some automation. We've had a lot of improvements on the total takt time of all of the chargers. So that's one point. The second point I mentioned already, right? We invested early. We didn't overinvest. We just invested early, and we're able. We have the capex there. More or less for the volumes that we kind of calculate or assume in around 3 to 4 years, and we have the ability just to access that capacity as we need. It's a matter of activating additional end of line testers, which is a few months process, not a big deal, and it means hiring more people and putting on more shifts. So we have the experience of knowing what it's like to not be prepared for a hyper growth. And so we took that lesson and we brought it to the US and said, let's prepare in advance. And we were fortunate enough to be able to make those investments ahead of time. So we're ready.
Okay, and speaking of ready, there's some competitors out there. We talked already about ABB, but like Tesla recently announced that with their NACS cable and everybody working, they have a big factory up in Buffalo. In the US, they're building quite a few chargers there. Obviously, there's going to be some Chinese players that are going to come into the market. How do you keep up with those who are already at scale? I mean, you guys are, I think, the biggest right now in Europe, but these guys are also at a large scale. How do you keep ahead of them? They're very, Teslas, for instance, are very simple. Yours are, one component. Theirs are two components, so maybe not as simple as they may look from the naked eye. But how do you keep up with those kind of organizations that move fast and scale in big ways?
Yeah. Well, I think one thing is we're a private company still. We're 100% private. I've actually worked in public company my entire career except for Alpitronic, and I can tell you the speed of decision making in Alpitronic compared to large corporates or even big private companies is very fast. So I think on decision making we will be at par, maybe even faster than the rest in terms of making decisions on pivoting on product, on design, or listening to customers, or following the market and codes and centers. I mean, that's something that I think is really a benefit of being a private company. We're 100% financially independent, so no outside investors and no bank debt.
Oh, wow.
Our strategy is super clear. So we don't have somebody else outside, like a PE or somebody or other shareholder on our cap table telling us what to do. We're able to make all of the strategic decisions inside the company, and I think that's been one of the things that's helped us be successful in front of our customers, is that our strategy is super clear. We are a DCFC L3 player. We're a hardware player. We're proud of it. We're going to say that we're a pure player. We started from EV charging. That's the company, that's in the DNA. So we're not, doing level 2 and level 3. We're not claiming to be a software company. We are a pure player at DCFC. So I think in terms of decision making and speed, that really is probably an advantage for Alpitronic.
Great. And we have a question from the comments.
Yeah, great.
Is there a difference in the communication protocol between NACS and CCS? Why would it be necessary to change the software configuration of the unit when swapping connector cables?
Yeah, yeah. So someone here is at Bastion. Okay, he understands everything. That's clear. Yeah, it's more just for our lifecycle system, right? So that we know what's in the field, so we know that it's this cable or that cable. We know when it was changed. Yeah, it's more just to follow the product lifecycle is the reason for the update.
Part of the reason why it's so quick probably is because it's the same same
Yeah,
stuff going through the
exactly,
wires.
exactly. So yeah, Bastian, that's a great question, but yeah, it's just for the life cycle of the product, so we know what's where.
Great. Well, thank you so much for
Yeah, we can
joining us.
take another question if
Oh.
you want. I mean, this is fun. I don't
Let's
know
see.
if we. I don't know. Sorry.
Do we have another one here?
Yeah.
Will your hypercharger work with a premise wiring branch circuit protected 200 amp? That's a very specific
Will your
question here.
hypercharger work with a premises wiring branch circuit protected 200 amp plus? Boy, that is a very specific question. Well, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to answer that. I mean, the hypercharger itself, we typically feed with a 600 amp frame breaker to get the 400 amp kilowatt. So I'm not sure, what you mean on the ground fault. Maybe you can email Seth offline, and we can give you
Sure.
a more proper answer to that.
All right.
Any other questions?
I don't know, but I have to say, I'm on your website right now. It's the configurator is pretty cool. Like it's like almost like a car configurator when you can just choose your model here, and then you had your module inside depending on your capacity of power, and you see the modularity of the system that you have here, which is pretty cool. And then you just, like you said earlier, just simply add your connector. Though you can even have your cable management, and you see them getting added on it pretty easily.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah, one of
I
the
don't think
things
you have the NACS on this yet, though. You have Shademo and CCS.
Yeah. We as Seth saw, I mean, we just put on the first NACS
Okay.
yesterday and the day before. So, but yeah, the NACS is available from October for us.
And
So
then
it's
you can
available.
have like the payment terminal like that, and it shows up. It's very cool.
Yeah. The product is really, I mean, it's a configured to order, but it's really, it's one, it's designed for manufacturing and designed for services. So the configurator is there, but it's also linked heavily to the serviceability of the product, right? So you can select the different, I want 2 cables or 4 cables. Behind that, that's choosing the subassemblies for all of the components inside, which are all field changeable. So it's completely modular, designed for manufacturing, designed for service. And yeah, we want to offer to our customers. We talked about the cable selections earlier. So, some are running business models that want to have, payment terminals or not. And again, we talked about NACS, and yeah, there you go, colors, right? Customers like to put our product in their colors. Cable management on top. It looks like you've selected that. So
yeah, those are really cool. I've never seen the cable management work so effortlessly. Those were nice.
So lead time, yeah. Oh, sorry.
No, we have another question
Yeah,
from
sure.
Ikara. What is the time on the 400?
Yeah, hi, Ikara. Thanks for the question. Yeah, so I think the aspiration for us is to get down to right around 12 weeks. Okay, more or less. This is our aspiration. Right now, we're probably a bit more like 14 or a little bit more because we are starting up. So as we become more and more efficient, that will go down. So I'd say the target is to get to be around 12 weeks directionally.
All right.
Now, if there's a special color or something maybe that doesn't exist, that can impact it, but at least for the standard product.
Yeah.
Contact sales, if you just go to our website, there's an email address there. So
all right, we're making sales on
the you can reach out and contact
live
us.
here.
Yeah, sure.
And Bastian follows up. Did you encounter incompatibility issues between your DCFC and some vehicles? If so, what would be the real guideline to follow to avoid that?
Yeah, well, we do extensive testing with the OEMs. And that's been, so we're first of all usually at the testables, but we also do our own internal testing with the OEMs. I mean, there are some things that are kind of known, right? If you have, the Tesla before 2021 and you don't have the CCS, and then it's not going to work. So everybody, I think, knows that one. But for the other one, we really work as close as we can with the OEMs to do all of this interop testing before, so that hopefully it works in the field. But when we find problems, and we do, I mean, we have relationships with the majority of the R&D at the OEMs, and we would go directly with them to work on problems. And it's also, a lot of new cars are coming out, especially with plug and charge and thing. There's a lot of different things that, a lot of stars that need to be aligned, for things to work. And I think the OEMs also, they realize, and it's always a question, right? When the charger doesn't work or something, it's like, okay, is it the hardware? Is it the back end? Is it the vehicle? And the OEMs are, a lot of the OEMs are still new to the industry, and they're still figuring things out, and they're actually happy to get feedback from us. Because we help them from time to time. They also help us from time to time as well.
Sure. So. All right, a couple of follow-ups. Do you offer APIs for third-party consumer apps?
Yeah, for that, so yeah, a lot of our customers definitely want to have, you see more and more business models where customers want to have that integration to their apps, because maybe the model is not about turning the asset over like a typical CPO model. And maybe it's about driving traffic to your store, or it's an amenity for a hotel, for example, that you want to offer. Hey, I can use loyalty points for that. So typically these integrations are always done through the back end, right?
Okay.
So that's going to the OCPP backend. That's typically where the integration would run. Now we do, of course, we are able to put certain things on the screen so our customers can manage what's shown on the screen. But yeah, those integrations are typically done with the OCPP backend.
All right, I think that's the end of the questions. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for having us here down in Charlotte. It's an amazing place, and maybe we'll see you in Wisconsin soon.
Yeah, thanks a lot. This was fun. Let's
Thank
do it
you.
again, huh? Thanks a lot. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Mike.
All right.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening to the Electrek podcast this week. It was a pleasure to have you. Thanks a lot to Mike for the interview. It was very informative. And if you do enjoy the podcast, we appreciate when you give us a like, a subscribe, and hit the notification button. All that stuff helps the show a lot. If you're listening on your podcast app, if you can give us a 5-star review, that helps the show a ton, and we appreciate when you do it. And we're going to see you same time, maybe not same time, same place.